Welcome to ASD Shine Bright, the podcast. I'm Corey Young. This is the podcast where you highlight all the awesome things going on in our school district. We have a very special guest as part of Hispanic Heritage Month, and I just really love that we're having her on here. We have Anchorage School Board member Dora Wilson, who's going to talk a little bit about her life and kind of like the things she's doing here, not necessarily just in the district, but also here in Anchorage in Alaska. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm doing great.
Oh, awesome.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for having us. And so I just wanted to ask, first of all, can you tell us a little bit about your background? Like, where were you born? Where did you come from?
Yeah, of course. I was born in Othello, Washington. It's a small town in eastern Washington. My parents were from the southern part of Texas, and they were farm workers. They ended up migrating to Washington State. They were following the crops, basically following the work. And my dad ended up working in construction. My mom worked in, she was the WIC lady for many years, the Women, Infant, Children program. They called her around town the WIC lady. It's a small town. So, and grew up in Washington State. I'm the youngest of 5 kids. My parents were absolute advocates for education. My dad only had a second grade education. He could not read and write. And my mom, who loved education, unfortunately wasn't able to graduate high school because her family moved to follow the work, because that's what they did, and she wasn't able to graduate. So she ended up getting her GED actually after she had us 5 kids. So huge advocate for education. I'm actually the youngest of 5 kids that graduated. 4 of us have our master's degree. One sibling just has their bachelor's degree. We have a whole host of certificates between us. So education is the game changer.
I love it. So you're Mexican American.
Mexican American.
Tell me a little bit about like your heritage and like what are some of the things that you've learned, instilled from you from your culture that you still apply now?
So my last name before I was married is Garcia. So I went from Dora Elia Garcia to Dora Wilson. So a little bit of a shift there. I love culture, and I love my culture. I love everyone's culture. Food's really important because food is how we gather. Food is how you show love. So I enjoy cooking for people. I enjoy sharing meals with people. Music and the language, and my Spanish is not fluent. I can understand Spanish fluently. I can't speak Spanish fluently, but I really enjoy listening to people and talking to people just the same.
I love it. We know Alaska is very diverse.
Hugely diverse.
Being from here, I've learned that, and I've literally grew up amongst people from every type of culture. I know it's crazy because you don't see that really around our country, but in Alaska and Anchorage, we really have that. So a lot of my friends I grew up with that were Mexican American, I would get like ceviche, to the point even as an adult, I have a person I used to work with in TV news actually, her mom would literally bring me ceviche in a bucket. It was huge, and then it took me weeks to eat it, but I really appreciate it. So
that's awesome.
I definitely understand and love that about our city and town. Tell me, so what, you start off in Washington, but how did you end up in Alaska?
So I met my husband in college. Actually, I'm the youngest of 5 siblings. We all graduated from the same university, Eastern Washington University. We had a scholarship there for many years. It was a very cool thing. So we met in college. He was born and raised in Anchorage, so we ended up coming back to Anchorage. That was actually his prerequisite when we met, is we would come back to Anchorage. We've raised our 3 kids here. We have 3 beautiful, now they're all in their 20s. My husband and I have been therapeutic foster parents for just over 20 years now in the community, really involved in the community. I work for, my day job is with IBEW, Local 1547, and I spend a lot of time advocating for apprenticeship because it's really important to me. For my family, education was the generation changer. That's what we knew. That's what my parents knew, is that going to college would make a difference for our family. But since then, I've learned that there's other routes that kids can take that can make a difference for their future, and apprenticeship is one of them. Entrepreneurship is another. So I like to spend my time educating our educators, educating our youth and our families on their opportunities for their future.
I love
so that's all really exciting.
Yep. Dora's husband is Marcus Wilson. I love Marcus. Full disclosure, I'm an East guy, East T-Bird, Betty Davis, East Anchorage High School, Thunderbird, and I call Marcus an OG because he was before my time, but he was a guy I looked up to. And I know you're part of that same journey. I know your children went to Diamond and they played soccer. And
yeah, I have three that played sports, but two that played college soccer. So it was actually a really good opportunity for them. They learn a lot playing sports.
And I do, in the past I've worked when I used to be a reporter, talking a lot about the apprenticeships and the big things that happen in our school. We are in our state that's very, not necessarily VOTEC heavy, but we do depend on a lot of those type of jobs to do the things we do, especially with our natural resources and gas and oil and natural gas, things like that. And so those are some of the things you've done, but what are some of the things that you push for in terms of, we need people in every field, but specifically in these fields where you can have a good life, you can make good money, you can take care of your family, you can support the things that you want to do in life.
Exactly. You said it very well. Thank you. I appreciate that. But it is really important. It's important for our kids in school, K through 12, to be prepared for life, to be college, career, and life ready. That is incredibly important to me because we want them to be prepared in many different ways, and we want them to have those opportunities where they can select their career, but also deselect their careers. So have opportunities and exposure to different careers and see if it's something they even want to get into. We as parents, you're a parent, I'm a parent, we don't want to pay for college tuition for 4 years for something that our kids decide that was something that really they didn't want to do. I mean, having the opportunity and exposure early on is really, really important for these kids to, again, select or deselect. My son came to me a few years back and he said, "Mom, I get it." I was like, "What do you get?" And he said, "Exposure leads to expansion." And I was like, "Wow, you do get it." It was very cool.
Exposure leads to expansion.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So talking a little bit about expanding, you kind of expanded your horizons a little bit. What made you decide to be, an Anchorage School Board member? Because obviously, you did have connections with business partnerships and things like that. But what made you decide to be in a position, where you're helping to change policy and help to, kind of change things for students and staff in our district?
So I have worked with the School Business Partnership Program for, about 24 years now. I really enjoy working with the schools. I really enjoy the impact that a business can make and has the opportunity to make. But as a school board member, I thought it was very important that our leadership reflect what our population looks like and knows. And my background is quite varied more than most people. I'm a first-generation college graduate. I'm a Latina. I do speak Spanish, even though I know it's not fluent. I know about apprenticeship extremely well. Even though I'm a college graduate, I'm a therapeutic foster parent, so I know the mental health realm very well because of the students that I've worked with, and I know their challenges. There are just many different perspectives that I knew I could bring to the table that I felt many were lacking on the school board. And so it was one of those put up or shut up kind of moments. Either, I can choose to run or I can choose not to complain. And I chose to run.
I love that. We talk about diversity. How does it feel? And I could be wrong, but are you the first Latina representation on the Anchorage School Board?
The first one that I know of. Unless somebody tells me otherwise, the first one that I know of, yeah.
So is that like a responsibility? Do you feel, I don't want to put any pressure on that because, you represent who you are, but that's also, that's just one part of it. But do you take that kind of lens when you come into, seeing things, when you're listening to, when you're in schools and you're hearing about programs and you're meeting students, like how does that play into, the decisions you make and some of the things and directives you want to push through?
I really believe that when you go into a leadership position, you bring the perspective that you know. And I even tell people, I have my box, right? I have a lot of perspective, but that doesn't mean it's everyone's perspective. So please push me out of my box. Give me some conversation, give me some context. But it's really important to bring that perspective, to bring the perspective of the culture that I grew up with, of the culture that I've seen other kids grow up with, of the challenges that I've seen kids grow up with. To bring that perspective when we're talking about kids, because my job is to advocate for our students and to try to really make sure that every decision that we make reflects or affects as many students in a positive way as we can. So I try to bring as many perspectives as I can. And absolutely, my culture plays into that.
I love it. When you think about Hispanic Heritage Month, what do you think about? Again, we live in one of the, if not the most diverse district. I know there's been like CNN reports about the most diverse city. I know there's at least 3 or 4 of our high schools, and that would also translate down to the middle schools and elementary, are the most diverse schools in the entire country. That's crazy when you think about every single box that has to be checked on that. And you just don't see it. I have family in Texas as well, and then in the East Coast, and it's, it's true, you just don't see that much diversity. I'm not saying there's not diversity, but to be able to have all that stuff, what do you think about Hispanic Heritage Month? What are some of the things that you're proud of, like as we represent here in the Anchorage School District?
So can I tell a funny story? Because it's funny to me. Hopefully it's funny to you. But when I first got here and I had my son and I was at a doctor's office with him and I was talking to a gentleman who spoke beautiful Spanish. And I came home and I told my husband, I said, there was a black man who spoke really amazing Spanish. And he said, baby, he's Dominican. Because we're Eastern Washington, the Latino base is Mexican-American. And so I had never been exposed to Latinos from other countries. And so when I came to Anchorage, there's Latinos from every country here, from Colombia, from Venezuela, so it's amazing interacting and seeing the differences. Even within the Latino culture, there's so many differences. And it's so much fun. But really recognizing that culture is such a positive thing, that ethnicity is such a cool thing. So get to know different cultures, get to take that as an opportunity to get to know somebody's background. I think it's wonderful.
Oh, I think so too. On that note, is there any kind of last words you might have? We're talking about Hispanic Heritage Month, but we're talking about you, the person, Dora Wilson, and I think that a lot of awesome things you've shared with us and the people that will be watching and listening. Is there any kind of words of advice or wisdom that you might have that you would have out there for anybody listening?
I just want to share my appreciation for all of the leaders out there from all of our different communities, from our Latino community, from our Black community, from every community, because of the work they put into our community, because of the work they put into our families, to our kids. And I have great appreciation for that, because leadership is really showing up. It's really caring. It's trying to make a difference. And that's how I define leadership. And we have a lot of great leadership in this city. So I just want to say thank you to those leaders. I
love it. Thank you so much. Anchorage School Board Member Dora Wilson has many hats, and we really appreciate your time as part of Hispanic Heritage Month. We'll have a lot more content, so make sure you guys listen to our podcast here, ASD Shine Bright. We're on YouTube, but we're also on Spotify, Apple Music, and a lot of other outlets. And until next time, we'll see you.